From Nippon, of course, we will look at the stock reaction when those markets open. Well, we are less than an hour now away from the polls opening in Indonesia, about 45 minutes to be exact, which will see President Joko Widodo facing off against former General Prabowo Subianto. Well, let's get out to Martin Sung, who is on standby in Jakarta, right near a polling station. Martin, we're getting ever so close now to this huge contest. What are you expecting?
Indeed. Thank you, Nan, and good morning, folks. Yeah, we're outside one of 800,000 polling stations in Indonesia spread across this vast archipelago. And you're right, we're about 45 minutes away from voting starting. It's going to be a 6-hour affair, 7 a.m. local to 1 p.m. in the afternoon for 193 million Indonesians. That's the electorate to cast their ballot. And I have to say here, it's 5 different elections going on at the same time, not just for the presidency and the vice presidency, which is catching most of the attention, but also for the legislature, for the parliament, for provincial leaders, for district leaders, and also sub-district leaders. So this is a massive logistical exercise. In fact, it is the single biggest one-day election happening on the planet. So if you thought India was something, and of course it is, this logistically is probably even more of a nightmare. But yes, it's a rerun at the presidency level of 2014. Jokowi versus Prabowo Subianto here. And Jokowi's been enjoying about a double-digit lead for several weeks, if not months now. So he is favored to win a second 5-year term. Remember, there are term limits, 2 terms, and that's it here. But I have to note there is an outside chance, and some reliable outside surveys and pollsters point to it as high as 1 in 4, 25% chance of a Prabowo victory. And that does have people a little bit worried because the challenger is seen as belligerent, yes, jingoistic, yes, also nationalist, yes, and not afraid to play the Islamist card as well. So there's a lot to play for here. The margin of victory, Nan, is going to be very important. Last election, 2014, Jokowi's victory was extremely slim, probably the slimmest in modern Indonesian electoral history, 53% versus 47%. He needs to widen that to ensure a stronger mandate. But what's being underreported, I think, is the elections at the parliamentary level, what they call the DPR, because that is going to determine whether or not whoever wins is able to push through his legislative agenda smoothly or run into roadblocks. And I have to say that both candidates are on board in terms of pushing infrastructure development in Indonesia further, but more so Jokowi. Nan, back to you.
Yes, and of course that reform mandate will be a key concern for our investors watching out there. And they're also going to be concerned about what you talked about in terms of the overall margins and any room for disappointment, because we have been burned by polls before. And when you look at the sheer numbers involved, the amount of voters in this election, it makes me think the pollsters have quite a tricky job on their hands going into the race. What other wild cards are you watching that could give us any surprises?
Right. Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, pollsters can be wrong. They have been wrong in the past, so watch out for that. Turnout, getting out the vote, Nan, is going to be very important. If there is strong turnout, it favors Jokowi here. 70% is expected this year, or this election. That's slightly lower than the 75% of the 2014 election, so watch that. The margin of victory, we talked about that, 53-47 in 2014, the slimmest in modern Indonesian electoral history. Jokowi needs to bump that up, widen that lead in order to ensure a stronger mandate for him. Conversely, if it shrinks, though, it could be seen as not just a weaker mandate, but also a bit of a censure of his management of this country and this economy so far. We haven't talked about this yet, but I want to get this point across, Nan, very important. Millennials, 17 to 35, roughly, okay, 40%, nearly half of the electorate. So young folks here in Indonesia, and the demographics very much favor this economy as well as this country, are going to be very, very important. They're going to be the very large swing vote, as it were. And speaking about swing vote, the people who are undecided, we've seen numbers as high as 14, 15% of the electorate. That's a worry. Another wild card is, and you can see it in posters across Jakarta, people who may not cast a vote for anybody at all. In 2014, a third of the electorate didn't vote at all. They basically abstained or couldn't be bothered, right? And the worry is it could be higher this election. There's a term in Indonesia, in the local language in Bahasa Indonesia for it. It's called golput. It basically means, look, I'm fed up. I don't really like either, a person on the card here. I'm just not going to vote. So that's one thing to look out for. And finally, I want to get this across, Dan. This worry about coercion, intimidation. We've seen some surveys saying that 1/3 of the electorate may have been persuaded, let's say, already, including through bribes, to vote for one person or party or another. So that's something to watch as well now.
Yes, Marty, when you talk about the sheer frustration among some voters, it reminds me of when I covered the last French election. There was a French term for kick out the bums in so many words. So this seems to be somewhat of a universal sentiment. We'll see how it plays out in this election. Thank you very much. We'll cross back to you shortly. Well, still to come on the show, Qualcomm and Apple bury the hatchet after a patent dispute, with the chip maker walking away with a 6-year licensing deal. We'll have more on the Tech Tip coming up next.
Today's Forex Update is presented by Interactive Brokers. 120 markets, 31 countries, 23 currencies. Today's Forex Update was presented by Interactive Brokers. Direct market access to stocks, options, futures, Forex, bonds and ETFs. One world, one account.
I'd like to donate these books.
Thank you very much.
Where'd you get that book?
A man donated it.
Yes? I'm sorry.
But I need to retrieve
I
one of...
believe you looking for this.
No. Thank you so much.
Return the book.
He founded one of China's best-known technology companies with just $5,000.
I had a vague feeling that the communications industry was about to explode.
Giving his take on security concerns.
Even if we were ordered to, Huawei would